On a somber November day in 1988, Christina Onassis's turbulent life came to an unexpected end in a friend's home in Argentina. Sadly, she was only 38 when a heart attack claimed her, the likely culmination of years spent battling relentless dieting and substance abuse. And while born into the vast Onassis shipping dynasty, Christina's destiny was not merely to inherit immense wealth, but to steer the powerful empire her father had built. Indeed, from her childhood, she was shaped to be as resilient as the towering ships that carried her family's name across oceans, forced to navigate a male-dominated world of cutthroat business. Yet, while Christina proved capable in the business arena, her personal life was far from peaceful. A string of failed marriages, each ending in heartbreak, added layers of sorrow to an already complex existence. And thus, her journey was one of sharp contrasts. She moved between dazzling high society galas and the luxuries of yachts to moments of deep, private anguish. Therefore, in this episode, we dive into the life of a tragic heiress whose relentless pursuit for something more meaningful than the immense fortune she was born into would ultimately define her, as we explore When $1.3 billion Can't Buy Happiness, the Christina Onassis story. Undoubtedly, Christina Onassis was born into a world that shimmered with wealth, but was equally marked by loss and turmoil. And the Onassis family, bearing a name derived from the Greek word Nassos, or island, carried the weight of a seafaring legacy that would propel them into unimaginable riches, but also into the depths of personal tragedy. Now, Christina's paternal lineage traced back to Smyrna, now known as Izmir, Turkey, a city once alive with the hum of Greek maritime merchants who thrived under the Ottoman Empire's rule. You see, the Greeks of Smyrna played a pivotal role in the region's economy, commanding the shipping and trade routes that bridged Europe and Asia. And their presence along these critical sea routes allowed them to accumulate wealth and influence in a world where control of the seas meant control of fortunes. However, this seemingly stable existence was violently upended by the events of the Greco-Turkish War of the years 1919 to 1922. And Smyrna, once a hub of cosmopolitan life, became a scene of utter devastation as Turkish forces recaptured the city. The resulting inferno, known as the Great Fire of Smyrna, raged through the city's Greek and Armenian quarters in September of 1922, reducing their homes, businesses and dreams to ash. Consequently, the Onassis family, along with thousands of other Greeks, fled the city with almost nothing but the memories of their former grandeur. They thus found refuge in Greece, but their wealth had been reduced to dust, and their future seemed uncertain. But on her mother's side, Christina's inheritance of maritime power was equally illustrious. Her maternal grandfather, Stavros G. Livanos, was the visionary behind the Livanos shipping empire. Born on the island of Chios in 1887, Stavros had an instinct for the sea and for business. And unlike his peers who were content to maintain traditional maritime operations, Stavros embraced the potential of steam-powered vessels early in the 20th century, a shift that would set the stage for his empire's dominance. After his family purchased its first steamship in 1907, Stavros seized the opportunity to expand, laying the foundation for one of the most formidable shipping operations of the century. And his strict policy of avoiding debt, opting instead to buy ships outright, allowed his business to weather the financial storms that crippled many others during the Great Depression. When the world emerged from the chaos of World War II, Stavros was poised to capitalize on the global demand for shipping. Specifically, by acquiring Liberty ships from the United States, he built a fleet that positioned him at the forefront of global trade. His conservative financial strategies and hands-on management style then allowed the Livanos family to rival other shipping dynasties, including the Onassis and Niarchos empires, solidifying his place among the greatest ship owners of his time. Now, Christina's father, Aristotle Onassis, was born from the ashes of this turbulent era, arriving in Buenos Aires in 1923 with only $250 in his pocket after fleeing the destruction of Smyrna. Starting from nothing, Aristotle worked as a telephone operator while studying commerce at night. His entrepreneurial mind soon found an opportunity in the tobacco trade, and within a few short years, he had amassed a small fortune, becoming a millionaire by the age of 25. Yet Aristotle's ambition did not stop there. He turned his attention to the shipping industry, using the global economic downturn during the Great Depression to purchase ships at rock-bottom prices and build his fleet. Then, in 1946, the marriage of Aristotle Onassis to Athena Mary Livanos, known simply as Tina, united the two dynasties of Onassis and Livanos, merging their maritime power and wealth. Their wedding in New York was a glittering affair, emblematic of the golden age of shipping dynasties, but the marriage would be anything but smooth. Aristotle's extramarital affair with the famed opera singer Maria Callas cast a long shadow over their union, foreshadowing the personal struggles that would haunt the family. Therefore, on the 11th of December 1950, Christina Onassis was born into this opulent yet complex world. Raised amidst extraordinary wealth, her childhood was a display of excess and luxury beyond imagination. Her dolls wore haute couture by Christian Dior, and her playgrounds were filled with ponies gifted by royalty. And the Onassis family's 320-foot yacht, named Christina in her honor, was her floating palace, offering glimpses of a life that seemed to promise everything, yet often delivered heartache. Yet, despite the material abundance that surrounded her, Christina grew up in an environment filled with emotional distance. Her father's business pursuits and her mother's immersion in the social elite of Europe's high society meant that Christina often found herself adrift in a sea of wealth without the anchor of close familial connection. And her childhood, spent in the most luxurious settings, from New York to Paris to Athens, was marked by a sense of isolation and loneliness that would follow her into adulthood. Furthermore, Christina's education was as eclectic and international as her upbringing. She attended elite schools across several countries, becoming fluent in Greek, English, French, Spanish, and Italian. And while her schooling may have equipped her with knowledge of the world, it did little to shield her from the emotional storms brewing within her family. The glittering lifestyle of the Onassis family was often interrupted by Aristotle's high-profile romantic entanglements, and in 1960, when Christina was just 10 years old, her parents' marriage finally unraveled. The public scandals surrounding Aristotle's affair with Callas shattered the fragile veneer of their domestic life. Thus, the divorce marked the beginning of a new chapter for Christina, one that would see her alternating between the glamour of high society and the darker realities of being an Onassis. Between her mother's stately homes in Paris, Athens, and London, and her father's grand properties like the sprawling estate in Argentina or the luxurious villa in Monaco, Christina Onassis seemed to inhabit a world without limits. But her true refuge lay on her father's iconic yacht, the Christina, where she found a semblance of peace amid the dizzying affluence that defined her family's universe. Indeed, Aristotle Onassis, her father, often referred to Christina as his golden girl, a term of affection that masked the tremendous expectations placed upon her shoulders. This nickname, while highlighting her elevated status in the world of shipping magnates, also subtly underscored her father's hope that she would shine within a fiercely competitive industry. However, this role came with enormous pressures, which only heightened her internal struggles with self-worth, exacerbated by relentless media scrutiny and a sharp awareness of her body image. And Christina's pursuit of love was no less fraught, mirroring the turbulent waters her family's empire traversed. Marriage for her, though filled with hope at the outset, became a repeating cycle of heartbreak and disappointment. Now, her first marriage was to Joseph Bolker, a Los Angeles real estate developer who was 27 years older and had 4 children from a previous marriage. Bolker had made his mark in the world by developing low-cost housing solutions in the rapidly expanding and expensive landscape of Southern California. His work even extended into philanthropic circles, raising millions for cultural institutions like the Los Angeles County Museum of Art and the Music Center. Therefore, at just 20, Christina was swept off her feet by this older, established man, believing she had found a partner who could understand the complexities of her gilded world. Yet, her father, Aristotle, disapproved of the match, dismissing Bolker as unworthy of his daughter. And under this heavy paternal shadow, the marriage crumbled within 9 months, the love story unraveling as quickly as it had begun. Christina's next attempt at finding stability came in the form of Alexander Andreadis, a man cut from similar cloth, an heir to Greek shipping and banking fortunes. Initially, Andriadis carried significant weight in both maritime and financial sectors, which seemed to make him a suitable match for Christina, given their shared backgrounds. The marriage, however, failed to solidify into the life Christina desired, and the relationship, marked by conflicts and high expectations, collapsed after just over a year, leaving her once again searching for the love and stability she yearned for but could not seem to find. Then, in 1978, Christina turned to Sergei Kausov, a Russian shipping agent whose mysterious allure and shared professional interests piqued her attention for marriage number 3. You see, Kausov's career had been forged within the Soviet shipping industry, a difficult arena that required navigating the treacherous waters of international trade under a strict, state-controlled economy. Consequently, his experience in the shipping world seemed to resonate with Christina, whose life had been defined by the very same industry. Yet, despite the professional commonalities, their marriage lasted just under a year. The differences between their worlds proved too vast to bridge, and this third marriage also ended, leaving Christina adrift once more, her hopes of lasting companionship dashed yet again. Now, her fourth marriage in 1984 was to French businessman Thierry Roussel. Heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, Roussel had built a career in financial management and entrepreneurship, and he founded several companies, including SGFC in 1987, which focused on investment strategies, although his ventures were not without failure, most notably a loss of $30 million in a failed strawberry farm project in Portugal. But despite Roussel's business pedigree and apparent success, his personal life was far more chaotic. But Christina's marriage to him seemed grounded in a desire for family and stability, hopes that crystallized with the birth of their daughter, Athena, in 1985. However, this union, like the ones before it, was marked by turbulence. Roussel's ongoing affair with Swedish model Marianne Gaby Landhager, which had started long before his marriage to Christina, continued unabated during their marriage. Landhage had even borne him 2 children during his time with Christina, one born just months after Athena. The subsequent revelation of this double life was devastating to Christina, who had been desperate for a loyal, lasting relationship. In fact, in an attempt to salvage the marriage, Christina reportedly offered financial support to Roussel and even suggested a shared arrangement with Landhage, hoping this unusual compromise might keep her family intact. Yet her efforts were in vain, and the marriage ended in divorce in 1987, 2 years after Athena's birth. Therefore, these repeated heartbreaks were compounded by a profound emotional weight that Christina had carried for most of her life. Diagnosed with clinical depression, Christina's struggles with mental health were punctuated by frequent weight fluctuations and dependency on substances, and the media relentlessly covered her personal challenges, exacerbating her isolation. Despite her immense wealth, her life remained shadowed by unhappiness, the opulence around her unable to insulate her from the emotional pain she endured. The untimely deaths of her beloved brother Alexander in a plane crash in 1973 and her mother a year later added to her sorrow, and losing them both in such a short span left an indelible mark on Christina's psyche. The final blow came with the death of her father in 1975, leaving her the last of her immediate family. In the wake of these tragedies, Christina once remarked, "I am all alone in the world now," a stark declaration of the loneliness that had been her constant companion. Despite these overwhelming personal struggles, Christina did briefly take the reins of the Onassis Empire with remarkable skill, managing her father's legacy with the competence and determination he had always hoped she would muster. Christina Onassis, born into the upper echelons of New York society, chose to sever ties with her American citizenship after her father's death, fully embracing her Greek and Argentine roots. This choice symbolized a profound alignment with her heritage, reflecting the weight of the sprawling empire now under her control. You see, from her early days in the energetic offices of her father's business empire, Christina was exposed to the inner workings of global finance at the tender age of 20. Her introduction into this world was under the guise of a secretary, yet this was no ordinary position, for Christina was no ordinary assistant. She was being prepared for something far more consequential, the eventual leadership of a massive shipping dynasty. Even in those early days, She was being groomed with an eye on the future, destined to wield immense power within the Onassis group. Following her father's death, her influence over the company increased significantly. And though her exact level of involvement in day-to-day operations remained somewhat ambiguous in the late 1970s, Christina's growing stature within the business world was undeniable. Now, while it wasn't always clear how directly she managed the company or how much she relied on her trusted managers, her presence loomed large. Christina carried herself with the poised assurance of someone who had been forged in a crucible of wealth, power, and business acumen. Impressively, she navigated the complexities of the international shipping world with grace, balancing the demands of commerce with the legacy of her family name. Yet, beneath this polished exterior, Christina's life was marred by personal struggles that often threatened to eclipse her professional triumphs. Her battles with fluctuating weight, fleeting love affairs, and an increasing reliance on medications to combat depression painted a vivid portrait of a woman grappling with internal demons, even as she projected an image of control to the outside world. Indeed, Christina inhabited a realm of wealth that bordered on the surreal. This was the kind of affluence that allowed for extraordinary indulgences. On one occasion, she spent $30,000 on a private jet solely to secure her beloved supply of Diet Coke from the US. In another instance, when she forgot a David Bowie cassette in Austria, a helicopter was sent to Switzerland to retrieve it, a gesture that epitomized the blend of whimsy and extravagance that defined her existence. But her generosity, too, was unparalleled. She showered her friends with lavish gifts and monetary support, once reportedly spending $30,000 a month just to keep them available for her whims. Her close circle was, in many ways, an extension of her wealth, a safeguard against the loneliness that so often crept into her life. Christina confessed to wearing diamonds at breakfast, an understated indulgence that spoke to her effort to infuse her opulent reality with some semblance of routine and normality. However, beneath these displays of wealth lay a woman who was profoundly affected by clinical depression by the age of 30. This was a struggle she faced largely behind the high walls of her luxurious estates, far from the public eye. Her mental health battles led her to seek solace in both food and various medications, attempting to drown the emotional pain in whatever comforts were at her disposal. Yet despite the riches that surrounded her, Christina could not escape the isolation that permeated her existence. In her final years, seeking a change of scenery and perhaps a new chapter of life, Christina turned her gaze towards Argentina. In the autumn of her brief, tumultuous life, Christina Onassis considered a bold new chapter in Argentina, a place where passion lingers in every note of the tango and the vast pampas stretch endlessly under the sun. It was November 1988, and Christina had journeyed far from the glamorous settings that had always defined her, seeking tranquility among friends near Buenos Aires. She stayed at a country club just outside the bustling city, hoping to find a reprieve from the fame and fortune that had both empowered and imprisoned her since birth. Then, just as she sought this quiet retreat, tragedy struck. On the morning of the 19th of November 1988, Christina Onassis was found unresponsive in the bathtub of her lavish residence in Tortuguitas, a short drive from the Argentine capital. It was her maid who made the harrowing discovery, a moment that would shock the world and forever alter the fate of her young daughter, Athena. A subsequent autopsy revealed that Christina had suffered a fatal heart attack, exacerbated by acute pulmonary edema. This medical explanation quashed the swirl of rumors that had emerged, those speculating on more sinister causes for her sudden passing. At the time of her death, Christina's only daughter, Athena Roussel, who would later carry the full weight of the Onassis name, was just 3 years old. These days, Christina's body now lies on Scorpios, an island as much a symbol of the Onassis empire as any ship that ever sailed under the family name. There, she rests alongside her father Aristotle and her brother Alexander, in a family mausoleum, and this hallowed ground, isolated from the world yet watched by it, serves as a quiet reminder of a family that had everything, and yet so often found itself longing for something far beyond wealth and power. And now, we'd love to see you in the comments. Do you believe Christina Onassis' story is one that should be pitied and related to? Or is she another example of poor little rich girl syndrome? We've really been enjoying your recent thoughts on heiresses, so keep the intriguing thoughts coming. With that said, thanks for joining us for another episode of Old Money Luxury, and cheers until next time.